Buenos dias. Thank you very much for inviting me here today. It's a real pleasure to be in Madrid. I was here 3 months ago, and it was just as hot 3 months ago. So greetings from the Global Alliance too. Dircom is a member of the Global Alliance, and I'm here representing the Global Alliance. But I take total responsibility for the comments that I make. Okay, these are my personal views. Before I came here, I said I'd like to offer a challenge to us as corporate communicators and as those particularly involved in CSR. And I think this session might make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. But unless we feel uncomfortable, we're not going to make progress. So I'm not going to apologize, apart from later if none of you speak to me after this presentation. So I've been working in corporate communications myself for many years before I became an academic, and I'm still very much involved in practice. We run a consultancy from within my centre. And really my observations are somebody who's very passionate about our industry. I love public relations and corporate communications, and I've got the most wonderful job because I'm paid to think about our industry. CSR has been an emerging discipline over the last few years, and I think we need to begin to take stock about where we are. It's a journey that we're on, and it's an increasing importance, but I think there are some issues that we need to face very honestly if we're going to move forward. So let's go back to the beginning, a definition of CSR. From the Business for Social Responsibility, operating a business in a manner that meets or exceeds the ethical, legal, commercial and public expectations that society has of it. Doing no harm is no longer good enough. And I would say that actually meeting expectations of society is no longer good enough. Organizations, corporations are expected to be leaders in society now. So maybe we need to revisit some of our definitions. And we're operating at the moment in a time of perfect storm. It's very difficult in the business environment because we're in survival mode. So of those of you who are working in corporate social responsibility at the moment, how many people this year have had their budget cut? How many have had their budget cut? Okay, only one. I expected there to be more than that. Because it's a time really for organizations where it's a real test about whether or not their commitment to corporate social responsibility is going to continue. And some questions for us, hard questions. Is CSR driven by profit or for moral purpose? Do we do CSR in our organizations because it's a good business proposition or because it's the right thing to do? The second question is it driven by externalities or governance? By externalities, I mean those sort of effects that our organizations have on the world around us, which are not necessarily part of our economic activity. So if you walk past a bread shop, there's a wonderful smell. Yeah? That's an externality that they don't sell, but everybody benefits. For many of us working in corporations, there are externalities that we create that are negative, such as pollution, such as when we relocate, there's an impact on the local community. And those things, then sometimes we put mitigating strategies in place. So we produce our CSR reports to mitigate against the fact that we may be involved in pollution. And sometimes there's a financial benefit to that because investors realize that if we do put those mitigations in place, then we're going to be supported as an organization, and there's a monetary value attached to that. So is that why we do CSR, or is it driven by a deep sense of this is the way that we ought to govern our organization? So is it mitigation, or is it proaction? Okay. And the last question is, do we do CSR, what I call as in a box, or is it part of the organizational DNA? And CSR in the box is to say, we don't need to worry as a board about CSR because we have all these activities. Here they are. in this nice box. So don't worry us about the real issues, because we can point to this and demonstrate that we've got integrity in our organisation. Well, let's just take a look at ourselves as others see us. And I've done a little bit of analysis of some media relations, and I'm sorry it's not digital, it's actually, you know, old-fashioned cut and paste media. There was a report done in the UK of formal complaints against large organisations recently. 3 accusations about companies, and the main areas of criticism were the 3 that are shown there. And the worst offenders, note that, are very active in CSR. The banks, financial institutions are massively active in CSR. What does that say? Okay, there's a dissonance there. Here are some examples. This won't happen in Spain, so I've just taken UK papers, okay, because I know in Spain business is done differently. But these are 2 examples just of newspapers I looked through in August and September, and the reason I looked through them was because I was on a long train journey, so I had time to read them in detail. Here's examples of how others see us. Peppa Pig up there is a very popular programme in the UK, and it's a TV programme, and the company is being taken over. And there are new rules in the UK about takeovers. You've got to declare who's interested in you. So it is actually on the English Stock Exchange, but it's registered in Canada, so it doesn't have to disclose. Okay, transparency, ask a question. EasyJet, some of you have been flown here by EasyJet, I know. Special dividend this year. Was it for the benefit of hard-pressed shareholders? I don't think so. There's a very important person called Stelios Hagianou who needs paying off. That's how that's perceived. I won't go through all of them. Here's a couple of examples. Diageo, the 2nd largest drinks producer and the biggest one in the UK, set to target children through Facebook. 300 million people under the age of 18 are on Facebook in the UK. They target them. They've got a large CSR program. Tesco, poor consumers were really hard pressed. You know, in the UK, people are going in clubs to buy things in bulk to supermarkets because they can't afford food. So Tesco's going to launch a real price war. We would have thought to help hard-pressed English families. Not the case. It's because its market share is dropping. And who will pay for that price war? It won't be their profits. It'll be their supply chain. Is that CSR? And they're a large contributor. Lloyd's TSB, this is the Paralympics. You know the Olympics is in the UK next year. I mean, there's an element of you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, because actually they've done a very good job of Lloyd's TSB on supporting the Paralympics, but it's one of the banks that was bailed out by the UK. And now here, they were just published this week, their criteria for sponsoring the Olympics. Number 1 criteria. Is Lloyd's driving incremental business through the partnership? What difference is it making to consideration of the Lloyd's brand among customers and non-consumers? Do customers and non-consumers feel they have the opportunity to get involved? Are customers more likely to recommend Lloyd's to other people because of it? Financially driven. Okay, very clearly. And just in case we thought it only happened in the private sector, here's the public sector. So, chief executive of the NHS, which is making 20 billion euros cuts this year, is being paid large amounts of money, and we know the corporate salary story. And in maternity wards, again, because the NHS is hard-pressed, they're making arrangements with private companies to take pictures of newborn babies, whether mothers want them or not, and to sell on the information about new mothers. So, NHS, the National Health Service, might be regarded as the epitome of a responsible organisation, these activities. So I pose to you then 3 killer questions that in today's world we might ask ourselves about our organisations. Here they are. And I would suggest that if the answer to any of those questions is this, and really what we've got to get to is what one was saying earlier, sorry, Carlos, was saying earlier, which is it's got to be part of the DNA of the organisation. So I'm going to spend the last part of my presentation just going through some thoughts on this. It's about CSR being part of the very fabric of the organisation, and it's about behaviour. So, and there is a danger in actually us giving significance to positions of responsibility where CSR is the primary responsibility of an individual. Because again, within organisations, do you take CSR seriously? Yes, we have a director of CSR. And it takes responsibility from the board. We know that in communications. We're not responsible for communications. We have a director of communications. It's their job. Similarly with management. But I would say that responsibility is a core of corporate social responsibility, has to be a core competence of the organisation. And here's a little model that I've devised that might help you think about that. If we think about the levels of accountability that an organisation has, I'll split those down into 4 levels. At that first level, at the level of society, this is where organisations decide what their purpose and role is in society. What they have to do to maintain their legitimacy and get support for that purpose and role. And their reputation here is an absolute measure of their performance. Okay, their overall reputation in society. Now, this has a social society orientation, and it's value-based. So values become the purpose by which an organisation can justify its existence. And primarily, that's the responsibility of the board. We drop down 1 level to corporate. This is where organisations shape their business. They decide what markets they're going into. And a role here for us is to coach management into thinking about the nature of their decision-making. This is normally an internally focused activity, and here we get questions about return on investment. Okay, I've got a good answer for you. How do you monetize reputation? Coca-Cola recently revalued itself. It estimated that 13% of its asset base was based on the value of its fixed assets. 87% of its value is on intangibles, on its reputation and on the quality of its relationships. So an easy question for you to ask is, how much would this company be sold for if it went onto the market? What's the fixed asset base? And the gap in between is the value add through reputation, and responsibility is a core element of that. So at that level, we have to think about reputation being an asset of the organisation, not the cost. Now further down, further down here, we have stakeholders, or customers or service users. These are the people you have in your value chain. And I would contend that who you have in your value chain and who you choose to have in your value chain says a lot about your organisation. So Illy Cafe recently went into a collaboration with Coca-Cola to sell tins of coffee, ready tins of coffee. And I know within that organisation there was endless discussion. How will this be seen? Should Coca-Cola be in our value chain because of what it would say about us? Okay. And the organisation and the systems of the organisation speak more than the voice of the corporate communication manager. Now, right at the beginning, I said that society's contract, if you like, with an organisation, and the reverse, an organisation's contract with society, is based on values. And some thinking that we're just been doing in the university at the moment is to come up with something that we've called values-based auditing, where you put your values around in a style like that and you get your stakeholders to rate you on your self-declared values. Now, the importance of this is that nobody imposes values. There are all sorts of reputation monitors out there, but sometimes the indices are not always applicable. You know, if you're not for profit, then financial measures are not applicable to you. But you are responsible for determining your own values. Okay? And if you audit yourself, you can come up with an integrity index by benchmarking yourself against others. You can only be held accountable for those things that you say you're going to be held accountable for, genuinely. So I would suggest that this may be a way forward for you. And I'll finish on this thought. If CSR is not part of the DNA of the organization, if you do not live up to your declared values, you will always, as a corporate communicator, be putting lipstick on a pig. Because the organization will always be a pig until governance, CSR, becomes a part of its DNA. Okay? And to quote somebody from Yves Daccard from the International Committee of the Red Cross, he says, "The days of CSR are past. We need to move to a point where we are creating shared," I can't remember if he said values or value, but it doesn't matter. The sentiment is the same. It's where we and society's values actually become one and the same. Thank you very much indeed for listening to me. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank Dircom, Asociación de Directivos de Comunicación, for inviting me to this international congress. I would like to thank EOI, Escuela de Organización Industrial, for hosting us on this. And today, I would also like to thank Mr. Steve Jobs for making my life a little bit easier in this day that we have just known that he passed away. Well, I have 10 minutes, been said, to try to connect those three concepts: corporate social responsibility, reputation, and communication. I'm going to start in the very first minute to give my conclusion, and then in the next 10 I would like to explain why. For me, corporate social responsibility is sustainable thanks to corporate reputation, and communication is the essential link between corporate social responsibility and reputation. Just to start, I would like also to start by a definition. What is corporate reputation? Professor von Brun, the worldwide guru on corporate reputation management, defined in his book Reputation Realizing, Reputation, a book from 1996, Realizing Value from Corporate Image. He said that a corporate reputation is a perceptual representation of a company's past actions and future prospects that describe the firm's overall appeal to all of its key constituents when compared with other leading rivals. Basically, when we talk about reputation, we are talking about perceptions of a stakeholder. That is reputation. When we talk about corporate social responsibility, I took the definition by the European Commission. It's a concept whereby companies integrate social and environmental concerns in their business operations and in their interaction with their stakeholders on a voluntary basis. I would say that corporate social responsibility is a voluntary commitment to do things right. So, being very quick, we can say that corporate social responsibility is something that we find inside a company, while corporate reputation is in the mind of the stakeholders. When we talk about corporate social responsibility, we are talking about reality, and when we talk about reputation, we are talking about perceptions. In order to analyze corporate social responsibility, we have to analyze reality. We can certify corporate social responsibility. When we talk about reputation, we need to talk to the stakeholders. We need to make market research. But corporate social responsibility has an impact in reputation. And this is why we understand that corporate social responsibility is important for not only for doing things right, but for getting better business. First thing that I would like to say is, if you cannot measure something, you cannot manage it. So for managing corporate reputation, we need to find a standard way of analyzing it, of measuring it. The international standard nowadays is RepTrack, the model by Reputation Institute, in which, first of all, we understand that reputation is how the different stakeholders perceive a company, and that those perceptions are emotional, are perceptions of good feeling, respect, admiration, and trust. We measure that with a concept, with a construct that we call RepTrack Pulse, which has all those 4 attributes on my slide. But this is emotional. So if we want to manage, we need drivers, we need rational explanations of that emotional concept. In the RepTrack model, we have 7 dimensions. With those 7 rational dimensions, we are able to explain this good feeling, trust, admiration that reputation is. Well, those 7 dimensions are the products and services, its quality, the innovation, being able to launch products before your rivals, be able to adapt to change, to have a very good workplace, to treat well the employees, to pay right salaries, to offer equal opportunities, to facilitate the conciliation. It's also governance, ethics, transparency. We call it in Spanish integridad, integrity, that dimension. We have also citizenship, that would be investing in the society and treating and having a good relationship with the environment. Citizenship is also another important dimension. Then we have leadership, to have good leaders, to be a company well managed, and finally, performance, the results of the company, to have a company that is profitable. With those 7 variables, we can explain the perceptions of admiration, trust on a company. Those 7 variables have different weights, different importance when we go from one stakeholder to another. But I want to get back to corporate social responsibility. If we analyze the weights of those 7 dimensions of reputation, there are 3 dimensions that would be what we could call traditionally the ones connected to corporate social responsibility, being citizenship, that is investment in good causes, which is also treating well the environment, which is governance, I said ethics, transparency, and workplace, treating well the employees. If we take the weight of those 3, we have close to half of the explanation of reputation. This is based on our 2011 global RepTrack rules, and there is a sample size of 18,000 respondents for developing this model. It's very strong and is based on 15 countries, this one. So, just to say that this is what it's important, and we can say that corporate social responsibility is very important when developing reputation of a company. So, next step, we know reputation can be measured. We know what are the drivers of reputation. What is the reputation economy? Nowadays we say we live in the reputation economy because reputation means business results. We construct reputation with the direct experience with companies, with the products, client service, investment, employment, with the corporate initiatives, branding, marketing, advertising, also corporate social responsibility actions, and with third-party perspective, what the media say, what people say one to another. Now social media make this very, very quick. And with all those things, we create perceptions. Those perceptions are reputation. Reputation that we measure with RepTrack. This reputation has an influence, a direct influence, in attitudes and behavior of people. That is to say, when we admire a company, we tend to buy the products of that company before other companies, other competitors. We tend to recommend that company above others. We tend to apply for jobs on those companies before doing it in other companies. We tend to invest on those companies or to give the benefit of doubt in a situation of crisis. That is what we call supportive behaviors. And those supportive behaviors have a direct effect in the business results of the company, whether in the profit and loss account or in the balance sheet. We can demonstrate that. We do. We can demonstrate that. In this same study, we can connect corporate reputation with the Net Promoter Score, the amount of people that would recommend definitely that company to third parties. If we are able to improve in 5 points in a scale of 0 to 100 on our RepTrack Pulse indicator, the general indicator of overall reputation, that has an impact of 7.3% in the number of people that would recommend that company to others. That goes directly to business. I could even say that in the USA we made this same analysis, and an impact of 5 points in an increase of 5 points in Pulse in the reputation index has 6%, a little bit lower than in the overall study recommendation, and a 5% increase in intangible value of the company, the difference between the market value and the book value of the company. So reputation, again, equals business. Let's come back to corporate social responsibility. This is what I call the CSR business model. If we were saying that 43% of reputation is explained by corporate social responsibility, so corporate social responsibility has an impact in reputation, and reputation has an impact in supportive behaviors that has an impact in business results, we can say that it's profitable to invest in corporate social responsibility. But there is a problem here. That corporate social responsibility is about reality, while reputation is about perceptions. And there may be a gap between reality and perception. A company can do things right, but if stakeholders know, it would create reputation. If stakeholders don't know, it is like if it was not non-existent. Let's say there is a barrier from doing things right, from developing corporate social responsibility actions and creating reputation for that company. So we can see companies with a good reputation that are not really responsible, so they are in a situation of reputational risk, and companies that are very good citizens as companies, but stakeholders don't know, so they are on a situation of what I call a communication opportunity. And this is the moment where communication appears. Perceived corporate social responsibility is what creates reputation, not just CSR. So what is the role of communication? To make stakeholders understand what the company is doing right. Just to finish and to give some small data, this is an old study where we ask people in different countries if they think companies should communicate the good actions, the good deeds. And there is quite a majority of people that was like 8 years ago say that it is important that people communicate. Last year we have done the same. I do not have a slide for that in Latin America, and the results were amazing. Most of the people were demanding massive mass media communication. Consumers wanted the CSR actions communicated through even advertising on TV. But when we go to traditional theory, when we go to the books, to the academia, we see that there is this idea of that the CSR activities should be communicated directly to stakeholders such as employees, NGOs, journalists, politicians, but only on an indirect way to customers, general public. Let's say an endorsed communication strategy through the other stakeholders. I don't know, perhaps this is coming from our common culture, from our Christian doctrine. No? I just took from the Bible Matthew 6:24, where it says, "But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing." It's like saying that you need to do things right, but, well, companies have kind of rubber of showing what they do. I can tell you that if you apply this concept to business nowadays, to corporate social responsibility, at the end, you are taking away the sustainability from the corporate social responsibility, the sustainability of the investment. Because if you are not able to demonstrate that CSR is part of the business model, at the end, when we have a situation like today, in the middle of cuts in all the budgets, your budget is going to be cut. If you are able to include CSR inside the business model, then in a situation like today, you can always demonstrate, I can improve my business by being a more responsible company. And I have just shown you the data. And to finish, I just want to give you one example of a client of us in a country in Latin America with a very populist government. That is directly the government was saying very, very bad things about this company publicly, saying that they were a company that has an impact in the environment because it produces mining oil products, and they were saying things like they were taking the revenue away out of the country, that they were corrupt, that they were doing things wrong. So when we measured its reputation, there were a lot of very bad verbatims from the interviewees, and we had a very low reputation score. What this company did, they said, this is wrong. We have a good reality in this country. We are heavily investing here. So for 6 months, instead of advertising their products and services, they advertised what they were doing in the country, like their presence, the amount of people they were hiring, the investments they were doing for creating infrastructures in the country, some of their corporate social responsibility activities. And that was during six months. 6 months later, the results changed completely. The pulse indicator grew almost 10 points, which is quite a lot. I can tell you with my experience. It's very strange that you see such a change unless there is a crisis or something like that. And it was very positive, and most of the mentions were about the positive things the company does, coming from a very bad situation previously. So the reality is that in practice, this is one example, I could show you lots of them. The reality is that communicating corporate social responsibility pays for companies. So what shall we do in order to communicate? My humble recommendation, do communicate as widely as you can on corporate social responsibility activities, but I would give you 3 limits. Be true, say what you do, be proportional, do not spend 2 in doing and 8 in communicating, and be transparent. Show honestly the reality of your business. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. When you're invited to speak at a communications conference, you know for a fact that there will be an impressive lineup of speakers. You think to yourself, how can I make a difference? How can I make people remember me? So I had a simple thought. I will be the only speaker who does not use PowerPoint slides. However, this morning, one of my fellow speakers said the same. So, which made me perhaps the only male speaker that doesn't use PowerPoint slides. But following Mr. Barrera's comments, I'm the only Dutch speaker who doesn't use PowerPoint slides. My presentation will be on the relationship between CSR and corporate reputation, as well as the governance of CSR. I believe that most corporations really want to meet or exceed the stakeholder expectations. And I don't know of any companies who deliberately want to be an irresponsible corporate citizen. And one can argue that companies do not have a choice nowadays for the simple reason that they need to secure their license to operate. And any single stakeholder can put that license to operate in danger. So when a company shows responsible behavior to all its stakeholders, this will have a favorable effect on its corporate reputation. However, the concept of corporate reputation, as we just saw in the previous presentation, goes beyond CSR, because CSR is only one of the reputation drivers. Other drivers being, as we just saw, products and services, financial performance, and leadership. What CSR and reputation have in common, though, is that they can both fulfill the role as a catalyst within an organization. A catalyst that will bring a shared focus among the different functions within a company. Corporate communications, human resources, marketing, health, safety, environment, legal, customer relations, just to mention a few. Because these are all part owners of CSR and indeed corporate reputation. So the benefit for company leadership is that both CSR and reputation can be used as a powerful platform for internal alignment. Internal alignment between vision, between culture, and between strategy. And thus, this powerful platform can guide a company's choices and actions. What many companies struggle with is the ownership of CSR and of corporate reputation. One thing is clear, defining a governance model and developing an effective organizational structure with the right checks and balances requires strong leadership from the CSO, from the CEO, but also from the Chief Communications Officer. Now, at the risk of preaching to the converted here, I will have a closer look at the value of a good corporate reputation. In my view, the value, a company reputation is valuable on two counts. On the one hand, it has an intrinsic current value as an intangible asset, being the difference between market value and book value. However, this usually does not appear on the balance sheet. Only when a company is sold or has been acquired or is in a merger process, then it shows up. But it is important because as intangible assets sometimes account for more than 75% of total market value, reputation is arguably the greatest single asset a company has. So what makes a good reputation? Well, to put it simply, if a company manages to deliver on its promises to stakeholders over and over again, it will have a good effect, a positive effect on its reputation. Now this shows immediately that that reputation management is not just a matter of communications. A reputation is the result of communications, performance, which is by far the most important one, and context, being industry context, because a company's reputation is very much affected by the reputation of the industry sector as a whole. In that sense, each industry, you could say, has a natural bandwidth when it comes to its popularity. Now, a key reputation driver for reputation is CSR. CSR, in that respect, can be seen as a self-regulating mechanism designed to make a company compliant with meeting its stakeholder expectations. Now, cynics would say, yes, but isn't this just about window dressing? And another killer question perhaps would be, would a company still undertake CSR if nobody knew about it? In this respect, Wayne Visser, who's the founder and director of the think tank CSR International, makes a plea for an evolution from corporate social responsibility to corporate sustainability and responsibility, which he calls CSR 2.0. And this involves a shift from philanthropic to collaborative, from risk-based to reward-based, from image-driven to performance-driven. Meanwhile, there is ample evidence that CSR makes perfect business sense. Research shows that companies who have a positive CSR rating outperform the average stock-listed companies and show less vulnerability to stock market volatility. Increasingly, CSR is integrated into a company's business model and requires the support and involvement of all involved of many in the company, if not all. It's about responsible behavior, which is laid down in the company's values and code of conduct. Therefore, it makes perfect sense that the CEO and nobody else bears the and responsibility for CSR policy and compliance behavior. CSR policy, after all, should be based on the mission, the vision, the values, the heritage, but also the core competencies of a company. And these are all things that are in the CEO domain. Particularly in international companies, a CSR platform sets a direction and provides consistency in the choices a company makes and the way employees perform and behave. Alternatively, it can be the chief financial officer who chairs a CSR board, as he or she is first and foremost responsible for the disclosure of information and the legally required transparency a company needs to exercise. So in some companies you see that the CFO takes the lead in chairing the CSR steering board. A function which I believe should also be part of a CSR coalition, the internal CSR coalition, is enterprise risk management. This discipline, which usually reports into internal audit or corporate control, is typically inside-out focused. But by measuring, analyzing, and monitoring stakeholder opinion, by detecting early signals of stakeholder sentiment and follow these over time, patterns can be recognized. And with these insights, risk to reputation can be averted or at least mitigated. And any risk in the usual risk classification, such as strategy, compliance, operations, reporting, governance, can affect reputation. And when reputation is damaged, it has an impact on any other risk. Therefore, reputation should be treated as the risk of all risk, as a meta-risk. Back to CSR. The success of CSR strategies depends to a large extent on the endorsement, visibility, and involvement of top management. I recently interviewed 20 CEOs in the Netherlands for a study called Brand and Reputation in the Boardroom. And the results showed that CEOs are very much aware of their responsibility for the reputation of the company. They feel that it is something they are dealing with on a daily basis. It is reputational damage, or the threat of it, that occasionally keeps them awake at night. They're very honest in that. And they say that customer satisfaction and the company's responsible behavior, and that of their peer companies, were our most important reputation drivers, followed by stakeholder relations and the reputation of the business sector. And the latter was particularly evident for the CEOs that I interviewed who are active in the building sector and in the financial sector, as you can imagine, because they really struggle with their own positioning in the wake of some serious incidents in the industry. Although CEOs accept their responsibility for corporate reputation, they do not seem to be aware of modern reputation management practice. And I think it's a challenge for communications directors to educate their CEO and other members of top management in this respect. To conclude, both CSR and corporate communication can be the driver for internal business alignment, since both concepts involve a number of internal owners focusing on different stakeholders. Companies with a strong, often monolithic, consumer-focused brand tend to take reputation as a dominant logic, as a leading indicator, whereas companies with an endorsed corporate brand, let's say company with a company behind the brand, may prefer to take CSR as a catalyst for internal alignment. So consumer-focused companies tend to go for reputation, and business-to-business companies tend to go for CSR as the internal aligner. CSR and reputation, I said it before, are linked to each other. Successful CSR policy and compliance will improve corporate reputation. It is about delivering on the promise. Now, the CEO should see to it that an effective governance for CSR and reputation is developed, outlining the policy, the processes, the structure, the responsibilities, and the compliance. And there are sadly, only a few companies which have embedded top management accountability for CSR performance and corporate reputation in their KPIs as part of their long-term incentives. There are a few companies that I know of in the Netherlands, but only a few. As an important stakeholder owner, the Director of Corporate Communications is well positioned to facilitate the development of a CSR or I should say, or a reputation platform, and facilitate, support and manage its steering mechanisms. Thus, the Communications Director plays a key role in change management, and by doing that, he or she can demonstrate the added value of communications function in helping the company to achieve its objectives. Thank you.
Bueno, buenos días. Es un honor para mí estar aquí hoy. Tengo dos países muy importantes para mí. Otro es Finlandia, otro es España desde hace 25 años. Pero hoy vamos a hablar inglés. I'll do this in English. I could do it in Spanish because Spain is a very important country for my family and I spend a lot of time here. My role, I have two hats on my head now. I am bringing you and saying hello to you from the Finnish Association of Professional Communicators, Procom, who has been paying a lot of attention to corporate responsibility topics during this year. The other hat I have on is my daily work, which is the responsibility of service area of CSR in Hill and Knowlton in Europe, Middle East and Africa area. So my perspective maybe is more that than Nordic countries. We are a network of communications agencies and professionals, wonderful professionals, dozens of them on this geographical area. And we have colleagues in Asia, in US, also working together with us. One of our experts you will meet later today, she's Sofia Lakatos from Budapest, which is working closely with me on corporate responsibility topics. I also noticed that I'm quite casual. I was a bit more formal when I came, but my jacket is warming Finland's neighboring country, Estonia, over there, so if you excuse. In this picture, what you see right now, two persons are making history, even if it doesn't look like that from the first sight. The other one, he is the CEO of a global forest company called Stora Enso, which is a stock exchange listed company, very active in Europe, in South America, in Asia. The other one is Greenpeace activist called, her name is Sini Harkki. The earlier version of their dialogue used to be in a form of Greenpeace hanging on Stora Enso headquarters wall, Sini plus colleagues there with huge banners, and then Jouko Karvinen and his staff running around and trying to fix the situation. Then something happened that actually they are capable of having this kind of dialogue. This is all available to you in YouTube. It's available in Global Responsibility website, which is a mini site of Stora Enso. And it might seem that, yes, easy thing to do. What's significant about this? But I'm referring to the previous lecturers here who are talking about how companies should manage and communicate their corporate responsibility. But to do it really in practice, to really be transparent, really come out of the ivory tower of corporation bullshit, it's not that easy. It takes courage, and this is one example of how it could look like, how it can be when you really do it, when you really have courage. And it took a while to get into this point. From H&K perspective, we see some fundamental shifts at the moment. Just picking up a few of them. Among our clients, they are from fast-moving consumer goods. They are from oil and gas. They are from energy. They are whatever. We see a few trends. yes, corporate responsibility is coming from the outskirts into the heart of the strategy. Like the Dutch lecturer mentioned, there are, however, not that many companies approaching it like that yet. But this is the trend. Also, we are seeing constant questions about raw materials, energy, how to use those, what can it cost, whose responsibility is it to do it efficiently. Value chains are getting more complex. Stora Enso was a good example of a company. Origin from Nordic countries, now the strategy is global. Fine. Then regarding corporate responsibility in this bigger picture, greenwashing is still an issue, and it's good that it is. Reporting is questioned. I will come back to that. It's the backbone of CSR work, yes, but as a communications tool, I don't know. Then stakeholder activity is a very big topic. There's a new form of light activism I think every one of us is using also when we like something in the Facebook, for example. So these kind of implications we see in our daily work. And unfortunately also, or maybe not unfortunately, but so that you know, from corporate communications point of view, when you are communicating responsibility or tackling these big topics on the international agenda, you need to have also issues management and crisis preparedness. Unfortunately, because in a perfect world that would not be needed, but in the reality where we are living, if you are paying attention to it, to responsibility, tackling different issues, pay attention to issues management as well. To be prepared. And then the challenges of real transparency and dialogue is that there are, in my essay, there are detailed survey results, for example, from social media index. They took a look on how top companies ranked in sustainability indexes are using, for example, social media challenge in their responsibility communications. And the results are not that flat, not that great for you if you work for a corporation. All those corporations, they have wonderful reports in place. They have really good management systems and targets and KPIs and data and so forth. But very few of them are actually, even though they are stating in their wonderful reports that they are transparent and transparency and dialogue, they don't do it. And I think the reason is that it's easier to say that in a report where you can have the full control of it and then print it on, hopefully on a responsible Nordic paper of Stora Enso, which would be a good idea. But then if you really go into a dialogue, that will change the working patterns of so many people around you in their daily life, that it's not easy. Fear is there. Also, companies speak officially. There is a corporate talk on this level, and then people are talking many times about the same things, but with a different language. I hope that the pressure is now coming, and we have such a good and wonderful examples of what the true transparency and dialogue can be as a part of the corporate responsibility approach, that hopefully now, maybe here today, we are seeing an end into an era where companies sort of are talking about them, but not really talking with them. And what is our role? We're a bunch of corporate professional marketing professionals in this room, and I think we are the change agents in this. But we need to have the courage and readiness really to enter into that dialogue, be there and talk and then spread the message and this approach in our organizations. We can be the first ones. Couple of examples how to do it in practice. This is unfortunately not H&K client. I wish it was, but they did a marvelous job anyway. This is a clothing company called Patagonia, and you can choose a product from their any time of their latest range of clothing, and you will get a full full story of it. You can have video, you can have images, who was doing it, where the fabric came from, and what is the impact of this specific piece of clothing into environment, into people, into economics. And this is not all. There is a full spectrum of social media tools linked into this, and you can have any kind of discussion opportunity that you want, and they respond. Also, if you are an expert, so that I'm not giving too much an impression that reporting is bad, it is not. It's the ultimate backbone of corporate responsibility work and also communication. We need those facts, but those facts cannot be the angles in the communication. Those facts are here. You can dig deeper as much as you can. Marvelous. Then what else has happened in Stora Enso is that as that company, like I started from, has a business strategy that they are actually going to be a plantation operation producing pulp from eucalyptus plantations in Southern Europe and in Asia, shipping that into their mills elsewhere in the world and turning that into renewable products. Very challenging picture. You can just imagine how this kind of company enters into Brazilian political reality, land ownership topics, for example. How is it in China? And what their German and UK customers, for example, think about this. So this is something where they simply have to give voice for different stakeholders, not only for their own corporate story. And one example of that is that they created a global responsibility web solution, also linked to social media, first time in the history of that company. Very brave thing to do, to start your social media live with as hard topics as these. But this is an example where, yes, the CEO is there, there's a consumer activist, there is a local Brazilian researcher, there's a Tetra Pak, very big client of Stora Enso, and there's a Finnish ordinary forest owner. They are discussing on the topics with language which people are using anyway. Easy, yes, looks easy, but it was very, very big thing internally in Stora Enso that they had the courage to start using the language that people are using anyway and talk about these hard topics in this way. And this is the forum where you have also the video of the CEO and Greenpeace available. So I'm challenging every one of us really to do it, not just talk about it. Do it step by step, bring in the true transparency, come out of the ivory towers, and see what we can make in our organizations to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have some minutes for questions. Yes.
Fernando, you said that you did the research in Latin America, the one that you did 8 years ago in the rest of the world. Are you planning to do the same research in Europe? Because it would be very interesting to see how things have changed in 8 years.
Why not? I think it's a good idea. I was thinking while I was doing this presentation yesterday night, I thought, well, we should have made this in one of our global studies. Is an easy question to ask. I have done it for some clients. That's why I'm not showing those results, because are private for those clients that are really concerned about if they should or should not advertise their philanthropy actions and other social responsibility projects that they have inside the company. My point of view, I think I left it quite clear in my presentation, is that when you communicate in a transparent way with a proportional scope, I think it's always good, because if stakeholders do not know what you're doing, it's like if you were not doing anything in terms of reputation, and reputation is the way of getting a business model for sustainability, for corporate social responsibility.
Any more questions, please? You might have some questions about others' presentations as well. Yes.
Sorry, I would like to ask a question to Anna Gregory. The presentations you have heard, does it still have a feeling that it is CSR in a box, most of it, or not?
Yes, some of it, in that I thought it was really interesting actually on the reputation indices that just 3 areas were picked out as being primarily concerned with corporate social responsibility, because I think all those areas should have responsibility actually embedded within them. And I'm reminded of an unfortunate company in the UK that headed the most admired, because this is another measurement, that for the Fortune 500, most admired companies list for years and years. Its name was Cadbury's. And its reputation was ruined because actually it didn't look after one of its products. And therefore this idea of the whole fabric of the organization, this is what I'm talking about when I say the system speaks. The organization structures, the way that the whole mentality within the organization and the way that the organization is organized, not only what they say, actually demonstrates whether or not they take responsibility seriously. And unless it's imprinted in every part of the DNA, and it starts right at the board level, because they set the values of the organization, then it's going to be CSR in a box.
I knew that something was wrong. Well, when I was showing that slide with the 7 dimensions of reputation, and mentioning that among those 3 were 43% of reputation explained, I would like to say that I completely agree with Anne that the reputation is a global business model that applies to all areas. All 7 dimensions have, in a way, something to do with responsibility. But it's a way of putting numbers, and it's good to try to understand what's underneath reputation. And traditionally, people, and I know that it's a reductionist way of understanding sustainability or corporate social responsibility, but traditionally we were talking about taking care of the environment, of investing in the society, doing things right in terms of ethics and transparency, and treating well the employees. I just added together that traditional view of corporate social responsibility, and adding that together, almost half of the reputation of a company can be explained. So I think it's a strong point. Even if I truly believe, and I think all the people that are here, we agree that CSR is not only about those things, but about the complete business model. But well, just to say that I use that to show numbers and to strengthen the idea that CSR can be clearly be embedded on the business model of a company, because we can demonstrate that if a company is perceived of doing things right, people are going to behave positively about that company, and that is going to have a direct effect in business results.
Thank you.
Sorry, I would like to say, this is very easy to say. It is good to be responsible because it's good to do things right, but it's also good for business.
Thank you. Last question from Tallinn.
Yeah, okay. Yes. Well, I have a question for Jami, and it is strongly connected to the fact that I have a cold and all I can think about are jackets and all sorts of warm things. So my question would be connected to that fantastic company that makes jackets and then posts online about all the little clips and social media outlets about how this jacket was made, which in my opinion is very nice in theory, but that's where the long-term investment into reputation building comes in place. I think if you're not Apple, nobody would be that interested to go online and see where my jacket was made and how was it made. I mean, no product is suddenly popular before something goes wrong with it. Like Cadbury, I believe a lot of people wanted to know how this thing was made, and only when sort of the thing hit the fan. So my question being, while we speak a lot about CSR in theory, how about the steps that lead towards it? I mean, what is how would you say we should fill the gap between sort of communicating the product to the client and showing the company, any company, as socially responsible? What lies in between?
I can maybe answer by using another example of Marks and Spencer. We, Sophia's and my, one of our colleagues is Flick Howard-Allen in UK, she used to be for 7 years Marks and Spencer corporate responsibility and comms director, and actually their story is what is in between. They made a decision to take a look on the whole range of their products, every single detail in all of the production chain and origin and materials and so forth, going into the shop floor level, and this is called Plan A. The reason was originally how they communicated it was that they didn't have a plan B, so they had to do this. But what happened there before they could wonderfully communicate this, and it has been really a success, was that they had actually in Marks and Spencer hundreds of people working together with 50 NGOs in order to in detail go through, for example, every single detail about their raw materials, and creating policies, creating management systems, gathering data, solving things where there were no ready answers. And this was, and I want to highlight that this was done with 50 NGOs, because Marks and Spencer felt that they do not have in-house the knowledge they need. So this happens there in the background, or this is required before, not this massive maybe that Marks and Spencer did it, but this is, for example, what, if you say that yes, we want to be responsible, and then on the other end of the line is coming out wonderfully communicating it, and so there's a hard work in between. And what is the role of communications in that? I think that communications cannot be a substance expert in all a range of those topics. But what communications can be, it can boost it, that help facilitate that substance work internally in order to make things happen. Because Flick's message is that the toughest part actually was not to use that in marketing communications and communicate and launch and you know, it's a permanent model now, but to win the internal resistance of Marks and Spencer people, which was tough and is still like that, and every new thing you really need to communicate that. Why are we doing this? Why do you need to do extra? Why? Does this answer into your question?
Yes, indeed. This is what I suspected.
Yeah.
However far we want to go with being
Yeah.
socially responsible, it all starts from internal communication inside the company.
I think so, and substance work, but question to every one of you is that why does it happen often that the first signal of that we as a company need to pay attention to corporate responsibility comes from communications, and the work actually also stays in the communications department, who is trying to run after all substance experts to get the data and put things into order. Why is it like this? It's not a good thing.
Yes.
Maybe to answer your question, why is it that communications managers are always the ones who has to point out that there's a problem, is because we are one of the few outside-in thinkers that a company has, and this is a real asset, because we're not blinded by our own job, by our own role, but we have one leg standing outside of the company and dealing with stakeholders, and we, better than anybody else, realize that if there's a problem with one stakeholder, it could easily affect other stakeholders, and then negative sentiments can escalate and can grow and really turn into a real problem. So that's our key function, to point that out to our top management. Hey, this is a problem, and your reality may not be the reality outside, and this is the difference between communications people and management. Management thinks in terms of reality, and we think in terms of perception, and management thinks if you change reality, then you can change perception, but it's not as simple as that.
Thanks a lot to all of you. Thank you, Carlos. And well, let's have a coffee break. Thank you.